following is a feature presentation of the Replay Sports Channel, the home for great games. This telecast is copyrighted by the WFL for the private use of our audience. Any other use of this telecast or any pictures, descriptions or accounts of the game without the WFL's consent is prohibited.
If I told you a defense giving up nearly 430 yards a game, utterly incapable of stopping the run, and dragging a miserable 1-8 record onto the field, just completely dismantled a Super Bowl contender, well, you would probably tell me I'm reading the box score upside down.
Oh, I'd say you were out of your mind, honestly.
Right. But that is exactly what happened in Week 12. Welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone. We have a massive stack of scouting reports, film breakdowns, and game previews for the upcoming slate sitting right here in front of us.
It is a heavy stack this week, too.
It really is. And we have a very specific mission for this deep dive. We are cutting through all the noise to figure out what actually separates the true championship contenders from the pretenders. You know, as the weather gets colder, the footballs get harder, and the game scripts just go completely out the window.
Exactly. Because late season football is a totally different animal.
Yeah, so we're examining the logic-defying upsets that just scrambled the playoff picture, breaking down the mechanics of this recent MVP-level quarterback takeover, and previewing a slate incredibly heavy on high-stakes Week 7 rematches.
And look, the lens we really need to view all of this through is situational execution. Because in September, you can win games purely because you have a better roster on paper.
Sure, talent just wins out early on.
Right. But by late November, there's too much tape on everybody. Those beautiful, highly choreographed offensive scripts that coordinators spend all week building, they just get blown up by the second quarter.
They really do.
So late season football is strictly about red zone efficiency, managing the leverage of the field, and basically how a team reacts when chaos completely overrides their game plan.
Well, let's talk about the absolute blueprint for chaos then, because the 1-8 Pittsburgh Maulers stunning the 7-3 Chicago Fire 30-7 is, it's the most jarring reality check of the year.
Unbelievable game.
Chicago walked into this game as 13-point favorites. Everyone expected a bloodbath. And it was just, in the completely opposite direction.
Yeah, and the crazy part is Pittsburgh didn't rely on some wild, fluky Hail Mary at the buzzer to do it.
No, they methodically suffocated them. They put together this 16-play, 66-yard drive that just drained 8 minutes and 17 seconds off the clock.
And that drive right there, that is the psychological anatomy of an upset. Because when a heavy favorite watches an inferior opponent bleed half a quarter away just for a field goal, panic starts to set in on the sideline.
You can see them gripping the ball a little tighter.
Exactly. But the actual structural collapse for Chicago happened right before halftime. Chicago is driving, they're moving the ball, threatening to take the lead and, restore order.
And then boom, a fumble.
Right. Blake Cashman scoops it up and runs it 75 yards back for a Pittsburgh touchdown.
Which completely changes the geometry of the game. Instead of going into the locker room down maybe 3 points, Chicago is suddenly staring at a 16-7 deficit.
It's a massive momentum swing.
It's like a Jenga tower. Chicago's scripted offense is this finely tuned Formula One car or a structurally sound Jenga tower. It looks unbeatable on a pristine track. But the second it hits a patch of ice in this case, that unexpected 75-yard fumble return, the driver overcorrects, the car spins out, and they show an absolute inability to adapt.
They completely lost their composure.
But I have to challenge you on the numbers here because this is what's blowing my mind. Pittsburgh has literally the worst defense in the league.
On paper, yeah.
Right. They surrender almost 130 rushing yards a game. So is this result actually a masterclass in situational execution, or is it just a lucky fluke wrapped in a statistical anomaly? Like, how does a defense that bad hold a 7-3 team to just 209 total yards?
Well, it happens because season-long averages lie to you when the context changes. Look, Pittsburgh won because they engineered situational dominance instead of focusing on down-to-down yardage.
What do you mean by that?
They held Chicago to an abysmal 2 of 10 on third down. When you consistently force a team into third and long, you take away their entire playbook. You force them to play into the pass rush, which is exactly how Pittsburgh ended up with 6 sacks.
Wow. Yeah, 6 sacks from a 1-8 team.
And we saw the exact same mechanical breakdown in the 2-7 New York Generals, upsetting the favored DC defenders 38-29. I mean, this is a game that likely saved head coach Dan Quinn from a massive media firing squad.
Oh, absolutely. And Bryce Young was just dealing in that game. He had 281 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, and the timing of his throws was lethal.
He was so sharp.
He hits Malik Neighbors for a 31-yard dagger immediately following a DC fumble. It was the absolute definition of striking while the iron is hot.
It really was. But again, look at the red zone mechanics. Why did New York actually win that game?
It wasn't just the deep shots.
No, it's because they scored 3 touchdowns on 5 red zone trips. You have to remember, the field shrinks inside the 20-yard line. The safeties don't have to backpedal as far, the throwing windows close in a fraction of a second, and running the ball requires just overwhelming offensive line leverage.
You're operating in a phone booth.
Exactly. New York executed in that phone booth. DC, on the other hand, had 6 red zone appearances and just kept settling for field goals. Add in the fact that New York's defense sacked C.J. Stroud 9 times. You have your answer right there.
9 sacks is just devastating.
So if you are watching these games this weekend, do not look at the total yardage graphic they flash on the bottom of the screen. Look at the turnover column and the red zone touchdown percentage. A defense can surrender 400 yards between the 20s and still comfortably win the game if they force field goals inside the 10-yard line.
And that exact red zone formula is what Cleveland desperately needs to figure out tonight, which takes us right into the teams facing a massive rebound mandate.
They are in a tough spot.
We've got a Week 7 Sunday night rematch here. The 3-6 Cleveland Gladiators heading into Chicago to face that reeling 7-3 Fire team. Now, back in Week 7, Chicago cruised to a 31-9 victory. Jahmyr Gibbs carved them up for 115 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. But that Chicago team feels like a ghost right now.
Oh, they are in full crisis mode. The back-to-back losses are bad enough, but the offense has suddenly devolved into this one-dimensional passing attack.
And the injuries are piling up.
Major injury concerns. Both Jahmyr Gibbs and Cordarrelle Patterson had to leave that Pittsburgh game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And look, if Chicago can't run the ball, their play-action passing game completely evaporates.
This is their bread and butter. But Cleveland is not exactly walking in with immense confidence either. I mean, they're coming off an absolutely agonizing 18-15 overtime loss to St. Louis.
That game was brutal to watch.
I was looking at the tape, and Sam Darnold actually threw for 226 yards. DJ Moore was finding these soft spots in the zone, right? Ending up with 7 catches and 76 yards. They easily moved the chains for 17 first downs.
Between the 20s, they look fine.
But the second they crossed the 20-yard line, the offense just short-circuited. Chris Boswell had to kick 5 field goals.
Honestly, watching Cleveland's offense right now is like, it's like ordering 5 rounds of appetizers at a steakhouse.
That is a brilliant way to put it.
Right. Sure, it feels satisfying to eat in the moment, but you are eventually going to leave the restaurant starving.
That is the perfect analogy for their season. They are chewing up clock and yardage without securing the actual calories they need to win the game.
But look at the jarring statistical split here. Cleveland's offense is technically 91.3% efficient in the red zone, but that's wildly misleading because it mostly consists of them just trotting Boswell out to kick a 25-yard field goal.
Right. Efficiency doesn't mean touchdowns in that metric.
Exactly. Meanwhile, their defense is allowing a league-worst 96.3% efficiency to opponents in the red area. They cannot stop anyone from crossing the goal line. So here's the real question for you. Baker Mayfield is still boasting a 104.8 passer rating.
Yeah.
Can he just casually exploit a Cleveland pass defense that is surprisingly ranked 6th in the league? Well, this is where the trench warfare dictates the outcome. Cleveland has recorded exactly 1 rushing touchdown all season.
Wait, 1?
1. All year. They are averaging a dismal 58.3 rushing yards a game. Chicago's defensive front knows this. They don't have to respect the run at all.
So they just sell out on the pass.
Exactly. They are going to pin their ears back, stack the box on first down, and force Cleveland into obvious third and long passing situations. We saw this in Week 7 when Darnold was sacked 6 times. Chicago will test his internal clock under pressure.
But Cleveland's defensive line has to be licking their chops too, right? I mean, they are watching tape of a Chicago offensive line that literally just gave up 6 sacks to a 1-8 Pittsburgh team.
Absolutely. This game will not be won by the quarterbacks. It is going to be won by whichever front seven can physically exhaust the opposing offensive line.
It's going to be a grinder.
It is. And it's the exact same mandate facing the 5-5 Baltimore squad as they look to rebound against New York. Baltimore just dropped a 23-13 game to Philly, where they converted only 4 of 11 third downs.
Which just kills your defense.
Exactly. When you fail on third down that frequently, your defense is stranded on the field getting exhausted, which was compounded by losing Brandon Graham for the season. The margin for error for both Chicago and Baltimore is gone. Fix the situational football or start booking tee times for January.
Yeah, no kidding. Now, while those teams are desperately trying to fix their engines in the garage, there is a tier of true playoff threats that are just separating themselves from the pack.
And they're doing it in a fascinating way.
Right, because they aren't doing it with perfectly balanced rosters. They are doing it by riding superhuman MVP-level quarterback play. The guys behind center are completely overriding their team's mechanical flaws.
We are witnessing a monumental shift in how the quarterback position is being played right now. The processing speed to read complex defensive rotations post-snap, combined with just sheer physical arm talent, is staggering.
It's like watching chess grandmasters playing speed chess, but they're doing it while a 300-pound lineman is actively trying to take their head off.
Pretty much.
Look at this list of performances. You've got Joe Burrow slicing up Tampa Bay for 348 yards and 2 touchdowns in Atlanta. He orchestrated 5 completions of over 25 yards.
And he took 5 sacks in that game, but never blinked.
Never blinked. Then you've got Justin Herbert coming off a bye in New Jersey, completely erasing a 12-0 deficit against New York by scoring 3 times 2 passing, 1 rushing in the span of just 11 minutes.
It was a blitzkrieg.
Then Drake May in Philadelphia, calmly picking apart Baltimore's blitz packages for 306 yards, hitting London, Douglas, Ridley, and Reed.
Spreading the wealth.
Lamar Jackson earned MVP honors for Memphis with a 153.5 rating and 3 touchdowns against San Antonio. And then Josh Allen in San Diego literally held off a historic Derrick Henry performance by answering every single threat with 4 total touchdowns.
2 passing, 2 rushing for Allen.
Yeah.
What's vital to understand about guys like May, Allen, and Herbert is how they're actively manipulating tempo. Well, when a defense blitzes, they are fundamentally vacating a zone on the field, right? A decade ago, quarterbacks would just try to survive the pressure. Throw it away, take a hit.
Just curl into a ball.
Right.
Yeah.
But these guys, they are welcoming it. They are reading the rotation of the safeties before the ball's even snapped, actively drawing the blitz in, and then effortlessly floating the ball into the exact void the defender just left.
It's weaponized anticipation. But let's isolate Joe Burrow for a second, because here is where it gets incredibly complicated for Atlanta. Burrow was surgical. He posted a 105.5 rating. But as you mentioned, he took 5 sacks against Tampa Bay. And worse, he just lost CeeDee Lamb for the next 2 weeks to an injury.
That is a massive blow.
You can't just lose your biggest field flipper and expect the offense to run smoothly. So can Atlanta genuinely sustain this 5-game win streak, relying on Burrow to constantly operate under that level of duress without his top target?
They can, and here's why. Burrow's superpower isn't just throwing to CeeDee Lamb. His superpower is elite composure inside a collapsing pocket.
The ice in his veins.
Exactly. Taking 5 sacks and still posting a 105.5 rating tells me he is never throwing the ball out of panic. He's willing to eat the sack rather than force a turnover. Offensive evolution dictates that great quarterbacks elevate the entire receiver room.
They make everyone around them better.
Right. Look at what he did. He hit Cortland Sutton for a 16-yard touchdown against Tampa. Back in their Week 7 win over San Antonio, he found Puka Nacua for a crucial score. Atlanta will survive because Burrow forces defenses to cover every single blade of grass, regardless of who is actually running the route.
That makes a lot of sense. And those elite quarterbacks are now on a direct collision course. Let's move into the heavyweight clashes of Week 12. We have 2 massive matchups that both happen to be high-stakes rematches from Week 7.
These are the games of the week, hands down.
First up, 7-2 Arizona is traveling to face 7-2 Las Vegas. Now, Arizona took the Week 7 game 23-13, but Vegas is a completely different animal right now, aren't they?
Oh, excellent.
Jalen Hurts just hung 311 yards and 4 touchdowns on LA, heavily targeting Jacoby Myers to the tune of 151 yards.
Vegas is completely dictating the terms of engagement right now. I mean, they held the ball for 38 minutes and 20 seconds against LA.
That's absurd.
It is. When your offense is on the field for nearly 2/3 of the game, the opposing defense physically degrades in the fourth quarter. They just have no legs left.
But Arizona's entire identity is designed to counter exactly that. They rely on Aaron Rodgers managing the game and handing the ball to Bijan Robinson to create this suffocating ground attack.
The slow burn.
Yeah, look at their last game against San Diego. Arizona secured the win with a drive that gives defensive coordinators literal night terrors. 15 plays, 93 yards, chewing 8 minutes and 3 seconds off the clock.
It's beautiful if you love old school football.
It's not a flashy offense at all. They are like an industrial python or a steamroller just paving over the defensive line 2 yards at a time. But here's my issue. Can you actually rely on a slow, grinding ball control strategy against the #1 total defense in Las Vegas? Vegas only allows 280 yards a game.
It's a huge risk.
Right, if Jalen Hurts scores on a 30-second explosive play, does Arizona's steamroller suddenly become a massive liability?
Well, this is the ultimate test of clashing game scripts. You're entirely right to question it. If Arizona falls behind by 10 points early, that steamroller strategy is immediately rendered obsolete.
Because you run out of time.
Precisely.
Well,
You cannot run a 15-play, 8-minute drive when you are down 2 scores in the third quarter. The single most important metric for you to watch in this game is first down efficiency.
okay, break that down.
If Arizona can get 4 or 5 yards on first down, they keep the playbook wide open and they control the clock. But if Vegas stuffs Bijan Robinson and forces Aaron Rodgers into 3rd and 8 situations against the league's top defense, the steamroller stalls out and Vegas will just run away with it.
That makes perfect sense. The other heavyweight rematch is 6-3 New Jersey taking on 7-2 Philadelphia. Now, Philly won the Week 7 matchup 25-22 in a thriller, capped off by a game-winning 7-yard pass from May to Cade Stover with just 12 seconds left.
What a finish that was.
But the dynamic here is fascinating. Philly boasts the league's absolute best pass defense, surrendering just 190 yards a game through the air, and they are going up against Justin Herbert, who has just been executing in the red zone flawlessly.
It is the classic irresistible force meeting the immovable object.
Who cracks first?
Well, Herbert's ability to read the field is elite, obviously, but Philly's defensive front just generated 5 sacks against Baltimore. Herbert cannot hold onto the ball waiting for deep routes to develop.
He's going to get killed if he does.
Exactly. He has to establish a quick game rhythm, get the ball out in under 2.5 seconds, and neutralize that pass rush, or Philly's secondary is just going to feast on rush throws.
To close out the slate, we really have to examine the games where the margins of error are razor thin, the trap games where teams are just trying to avoid total self-destruction.
My desperate teams.
Yeah, we have 3-6 San Antonio heading to 7-3 Atlanta. Atlanta won their Week 7 meeting 38-31. Now, San Antonio's Jared Goff and Tank Dell are brilliant between the 20s. Dell racked up 131 yards last week.
He was uncoverable.
But against Birmingham, they just kept bogging down in the red zone and settling for 4 Brandon McManus field goals instead of punching it in for touchdowns.
Which brings us right back to our central thesis for this entire deep dive. San Antonio generated 369 yards of offense and 22 first downs last week, and they still lost.
Because field goals don't win games in November.
Moving the ball simply doesn't matter if the drive dies at the 15-yard line.
Then we look at 2-7, Memphis traveling to face 3-6 Tampa Bay. Tampa won the Week 7 game 24-21 by imposing their will with 185 rushing yards. But right now, Tampa is a team actively imploding.
They are a mess.
They just committed 12 penalties for 113 yards and gave away 3 turnovers against Atlanta.
This is where we have to talk about discipline. Everyone points to talent when a team is struggling, but Tampa Bay ran for 136 yards at 7.2 yards per carry last week.
That's huge.
That is elite game-winning production on the ground.
Yeah.
But when you commit 12 penalties, you instantly neutralize your own run game.
It wipes it all out.
It doesn't matter if you have a Hall of Fame running back. If a holding call forces you into a 1st and 20, you have to throw the ball. They're literally beating themselves.
We also have 7-2 San Diego heading to 1-9 Los Angeles. San Diego routed them 33-7 previously, with Josh Allen throwing for 418 yards.
Just a clinic.
It looks like a total mismatch considering LA has the league's worst total offense at 249 yards a game, the worst run offense at a pathetic 55 yards a game, and the worst pass defense giving up 301 yards a game.
It could get ugly fast.
But the game I actually want to zero in on is the basement battle. The 1-8 Detroit Wheels visiting the 1-8 Pittsburgh Maulers. Now, Detroit won the Week 7 game 36-18 with Brock Purdy throwing 3 touchdowns. But let me throw a theory at you.
All right, let's hear it.
When 2 1-8 teams step onto the field, don't all the analytical models and statistical projections just go out the window? Isn't this secretly the purest football game of the week, where it just devolves into chaotic, instinctual play?
I'd actually argue the exact opposite, believe it or not.
Really? Why?
Because it doesn't devolve into instinct. It highlights the severe lack of discipline that got them to 1-8 in the first place. The reason teams like Tampa Bay, San Antonio, and Detroit are struggling isn't a massive deficit in baseline athletic talent.
Right, these are professional athletes.
Exactly. It is entirely about self-inflicted wounds. It's missing blocking assignments, it's taking a false start on 4th and 1, it's missing 10 tackles in open space. The team that wins this 1-8 matchup won't be the most instinctual. It will simply be the team that commits the fewest unforced errors. Remember, Pittsburgh just beat a 7-3 team because they played highly disciplined, situational football.
That is a great point, and it brings everything full circle. Week 12 is completely defined by these revenge matchups, the absolute non-negotiable necessity of red zone efficiency, and a crop of quarterbacks who possess the sheer willpower to mask their offensive line's flaws.
It's going to be an incredible weekend of football.
So when you sit down on your couch to watch these games this weekend, train your eyes away from the beat ball. Ignore the total passing yards graphic. Watch the trenches on 3rd down in the red zone. Watch the offensive line's feet. That is where the geometry of the field changes, and that is where these games are actually won or lost.
And I will leave you with this thought to mull over before kickoff. We spend all spring and summer building these incredibly complex analytical models. We draft teams based on total yardage projections, defensive rankings, and historical algorithms.
We obsess over the numbers.
We really do. But when you look at the contradiction of Pittsburgh's upset and you watch the jaw-dropping improvisational performances of these MVP quarterbacks, you have to ask a difficult question about the sport itself.
Which is?
What if late-season football renders early-season analytics completely obsolete? What if the true mark of a championship team isn't having a perfectly balanced roster with 0 weaknesses, but simply possessing a quarterback capable of making us forget those weaknesses even exist?
Wow. That is a heavy question. We started this deep dive talking about the expectation of precision. The idea that you can look at a matchup on paper and confidently predict the outcome based on season-long averages.
And we saw how well that works for Chicago.
Exactly. As we've uncovered today, the late-season landscape is anything but precise. It is a muddy, chaotic, deeply psychological environment where the stats mean absolutely nothing if you drop the ball on the 1-yard line. Thank you so much for joining us and taking this deep dive into the Week 12 slate. Enjoy the games, watch the red zone execution, embrace the chaos, and we'll see you on the other side.